this recording now. So you should be, just know that you are being recorded. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Mike.
All right. Thanks, Becky. Hi, everybody. I'm Mike OConnell with the Larimer Small Business Development Center. I put my contact info in the chat if any of you want to touch base with me. I'm just going to give the overview of what's going on for the federal programs through the CARES Act, plus what the Larimer Small Business Development Center does. We have a pretty small group today, so if there's any, we should be able to get to everybody's questions during the course of an hour. If we don't know the answer to your question, we will research it and find out and try to give you some guidance. And if we don't know, we'll tell you we don't know. So I'm going to start out with about 5 or 6 bullet points just on the current situation, if I could begin with that. First off, there is a fair bit of direction and discussion and dialogue that's going on about a phased reopening of the businesses. And I'm probably going to have Adam fill this in a bit more when he joins us. But basically, the governor did a presentation on Monday. The guidelines were pretty general. He left some wiggle room, if you will, for counties to kind of set their own direction, whether it be less stringent, more stringent. And we're kind of waiting now for the county to determine their own opening phase. I think some of those of us in the Northern Colorado economic community would really like to mimic what the state is doing, because it's going to alleviate any duplicate messages. So there are some policies that are being worked on right now for the reopening process, and that's probably going to be industry specific. We might have one set of guidelines for restaurants, we might have another set of recommended guidelines and practices for retailers, others for office workers, etc. So stay tuned on that for more guidance. That's bullet point number 1. Bullet point number 2, the SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loans, or EIDL, as well as the Payroll Protection Plan loans. The second round of funding, which is definitely needed, is winding through. I believe it's at the House of Representatives now. It has passed the Senate. So we're anxiously awaiting a second round of funding for that, which I hope will happen by the end of this week or early next week. That will allow more businesses, including those that didn't get EIDL or PPP loans the first time around. And I'm going to break this into 2 parts. I want to talk a little bit about the EIDL loans, and that also includes the up to $10,000 advance amount. That is working through the SBA disaster organization, which is a relatively small organization. Most of their experience has been handling regional and local physical disasters like hurricanes, floods, etc. So this is the first time I believe they've ever dealt with a national disaster. So they are overwhelmed. We're getting a lot of inquiries from businesses saying, geez, I applied, I got my application control number, but I haven't heard anything from them. And that is quite normal. We are not getting a lot of outbound communication about what's happening. We're hearing about clients that, okay, I applied for the loan 3 weeks ago, and then boom, the money appeared in my bank account, because when you applied, you had to give them your bank routing number. So money is starting to flow. The system at the SBA Disaster Group does remain overwhelmed, but they are, getting to applications as they've come in. And that portal is currently closed right now to new applications. That will open up again once the funding is completed. On the PPP, I'm sorry, Kat, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a couple of things in there about EIDL. So if you haven't heard back on your EIDL loan, that's actually probably a good thing, because if you were going to be declined, they probably would have let you know sooner rather than later. And then to kind of piggyback on Mike's point that the system is overloaded, they've processed 14 years worth of applications in the first 2 weeks of the program. So in 14 days, they processed 14 years worth of applications that they would normally would have processed. So they really are moving as quickly as they can on this stuff. So patience.
Hey, Becky, I just got a text from Adam. He has not found the link. Is it possible for you to send him the link?
I sure can.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
So I'll continue with, thank you, Kat, it's a great point. So my next point, and I'm gonna save this for Adam at this point, but part of the CARES Act is that solopreneurs, single shop people, freelancers, they're eligible for the first time to file for unemployment insurance. And they can get this through something called the Pandemic Unemployment Insurance. It's being handled by the Department of Labor and Employment at the state level. So businesses can apply for that. And for a lot of our creatives, a lot of our solopreneurs, it's generally, and this is a rule of thumb, it's generally going to be better for them to file for the unemployment insurance than it is to try to get a PPP loan, because number one, it's not a loan. Number two, you're probably going to get more money through it. So that is something to be aware of. And as guidance comes out about what you can apply for, what excludes you from applying for other things, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to be able to apply to get money from both the PPP unemployment insurance. So you might want to try to get filed for unemployment first if you're in that solopreneur situation. So that's number two. Number three, we've gotten several questions from small businesses who didn't get a response or having a really slow response from the bank that they've approached about filing for the PPP loans. And we're being asked the question, hey, can I go out and apply through a different bank or with a different bank? And the answer to that is unquestionably yes. We do recommend that you cast a wide net and you try to find a bank that's responsive to you. However, what you can't do is receive money for a PPP loan from multiple sources. So if you have success, if you get to the point where you're going to get money, then you have to tell the other bank, hey, don't process this loan because I've already got money. So you can only receive money from a single source. My next comment is a lot of the Northern Colorado economic development people, business organizations have stood up a new website. It's called NoCo Recovers. NoCo Recovers. You're seeing that on a lot of our literature, but that's meant to be a one-stop shop where a business owner can call in. They can get complete information, whether it's on unemployment insurance, whether it's where to get personal protective equipment. Maybe somebody has an issue where they're going to be evicted from where they're renting. So we've got a triage list that we can at least make sure that people are getting to the right resource to help them with that. So that's pretty important. I'm also going to mention, my next comment is, I'm going to mention that on a client communication that both the Loveland Business Development Center and us put out the other day is a site, or is a link, I should say, that's called the Small Business Alternative Funding Sources. And this right now has got like about 160 grant and loan sources. It's being maintained and added to by about 7 folks at the Office of Economic Development in Denver. They're distributing that broadly, encouraging people to use it and apply for it. So it is well worth it to go through and look at that particular data. So that's pretty important. And the other part, the last thing I'm going to say is these programs are available for both nonprofits as well as businesses. So I'm going to stop there for a minute, and Kat, I'll turn it over to you, and please feel free to update.
Yeah, so those alternative funding sources, what's important when you're taking a look at those is some of them are industry specific. So, you know, there's some that are geared towards hospitality or creatives or restaurants, and they are grant programs. They are independent from any EIDL or PPP monies that you might be eligible for. So, you know, one of the things that we caution if you're going to apply for some of these is to work with an SBDC or an LBDC consultant just to make sure that you're not accidentally double dipping on something. most of those are not from government sources, but just to make sure that you're not accidentally kind of excluding yourself from one program or another by applying for some of these and receiving some of these things. Also, some of those grants are not huge amounts, but they can be enough to help you if you've got your cash flow in line. So they're definitely worth taking a look at.
All right, Adam is working to get joined in. We've resent him the link, but why don't we just throw it open to question? Becky, did you, never mind. Why don't we just throw it open to questions at this point, and we'll try to answer them as we go along, but that's the general status of things in the Loveland Business Development Center and Small Business Development Center world. And I will throw it open to Terry Donovan Kearns and Becky Doffett, if you any comments from what we've talked about so far? Okay.
I just want to reinforce that, you know, if you have questions about working through your individual situation, we have about 14 different consultants that have been working through this process the whole time. They're constantly getting updated information, and they're very in tune to all the resources that are out there. And they can help you wade through, you know, what's my particular company situation and what would be the best course of action for me. They can educate you about the different programs and give you the information so you can make the decision about what's best for your business.
Okay. Becky, anything from your standpoint?
No, but we do have Adam online now. So if we want to turn it over to Adam for a minute, we could definitely do that.
Great. Let me introduce Adam if I could. Adam Crowe is the Business Development Director at the Larimer County Economic and Workforce Development Department. They've been a great partner of ours. Adam and I talk almost every day because a lot of the business resources that we're working on overlap and are things that the business owner should be aware of. So he's been great to work with, a wealth of information. And Adam, I will turn it over to you, and welcome and good morning. And we have a relatively small group today, so we're going to finish with you. When you're done, we're going to field some questions.
Okay, great. Well, thanks, Mike. Thanks, Kat. And Becky was a big help helping me to get on the call this morning. I don't usually consider myself a technically disadvantaged person, but this morning I was for some reason. So thanks for your help and thanks for your patience. Yeah, so Adam Crowe, Larimer County Economic and Workforce Development. And I just want to say that the SBDC and the Loveland Business Development Center have just been absolutely wonderful to work with through our current crisis. And I think you all are probably well aware of that, and that's why you're on the call. And when it comes to responding to disasters, I'm not sure anybody does it better for the business community. So what a great resource. So, you know, and I think Mike has probably covered a lot of these pieces with you. And since I'm joining late, forgive me if I'm repeating anything, but just always want to put in a plug for passing the word and or accessing the NOCO Recovers webpage. So it's nocorecovers.com. Lots of great resources. We're seeing calls and inquiries coming through. And most recently, we've been seeing a lot of calls and inquiries come through from sole proprietors and 1099 employees. In fact, I was talking to a gentleman yesterday that does a lot of event planning, and he's applied for loans. He's got a great banker. He's kind of waiting for the next wave of the stimulus to come through so he can get a PPP, and he's applied for unemployment insurance as soon as that opened up on Monday. And I think he was aware of those things mostly because he's well connected to SBDCs and he's well connected to a lot of other organizations that assist with that. But there are plenty of people out in our community that just aren't as well connected. And we're finding that a lot of them are smaller businesses. And likely it's going to be our SBDCs and other fellow businesses that connect, and our chambers and so on and so forth, who connect with those organizations. And so please spread the word, make sure people get connected. So I just want to do a few quick updates on things just to make sure that everybody's up to speed on stuff, and then open it up for questions. But I think everyone's probably well aware that on Monday, the unemployment insurance opened up in the state of Colorado for 1099 employees and sole proprietors. And as far as applying for unemployment insurance, good news is that it's far easier than applying for an SBA or PPP loan. So the news is good there. You do need to have some tax documentation because they're going to ask you to verify income. And if you don't have 2019, they will take 2018. Other things are a photo ID or a state issued ID, driver's license is going to be important for that. And then one of the most key pieces to making sure that your information is evaluated and your application continues to move through is that there is a button that you need to click that says, are you currently employed? And so you want to indicate that you're not currently employed, which is kind of for a sole proprietor or a 1099, that's kind of a language that they're not used to. So it's a bit of a dissidence there. So just make sure to click that button, or if you're giving advice to anybody, make sure to click that, ask them to do it. And then the system is moving a lot more quickly, and people are, I was talking to a person that's in the personal services industry. She's a hairstylist, and she said she's already starting to hear back and hoping to get her first payment in the next week or two. So the system is moving quickly, which is nice because it's typically not moved that fast. So unemployment is at least on it when it comes to speed, or at least moving more quickly. You know, the other thing through the county that's really important to talk about are property taxes. And as of a couple of weeks ago, our treasurer updated what the county is doing as far as collecting property taxes to match the most recent governor's order. And we do have to follow what the governor says because it's state statute, even though it's run by the county. So right now, property taxes for the first half of the year are due on the 30th of April. However, people can pay all the way up to the 30th and in installments up to the 30th without accruing any of the delinquent interest that might otherwise be applied. So if anybody has questions, obviously the treasurer is the best place to go to, and Irene Josie has been really good at working with individuals. And if they're having challenges, or you all are having challenges, just feel free to reach out to the treasurer and talk it through. They're trying to work with things as much as they can based on state statute, case by case. So encourage people to give a call, and I'm happy to provide some phone numbers if that's something that you need. And then the last thing is the step down or the phased step down that's being talked about, and the governor gave some additional information yesterday afternoon at around 1 or 2. The county is not releasing any information on it right now, and I don't have a whole lot extra to share with you. But the thought is that, or at least the assumption is that the county is really going to wait to see where the state goes, so that if the county is putting out information, they're not putting out something that's contrary or going to create confusion, but something that rather mirrors and or fits pretty nicely with what the governor orders. So we can expect that as the governor is sharing information and putting out information, the local county government will also do the same. So we just need to watch for both of those. And then the county is also really good at, so there's a joint information center, and this is run by the county emergency operations center. And they're really good at putting out information and or answering questions for individual businesses or residents when these orders come out. So it's a great resource. I'll go ahead and share that phone number with you because you can call it now or you can call it after the step down orders start to come out. But it's 970-498-5500. So 970-498-5500. And as you probably, the information we have to go on is really in the governor's order right now. And as you can see, there's a lot of the personal care services that are that he's been talking about and what makes sense. And yesterday in his discussion, there was some talk about why would that open, but gyms wouldn't open up. And part of what he was saying is that those tend to be one-on-one services versus a gym being lots of people in the same room all at the same time. So the chances of people contracting something are less in those one-on-one services. However, one of the challenges with that is that a lot of these one-on-one services for the personal care, they are our sole proprietors or our 1099 folks, and their ability to get access to the protective equipment, whether it be gloves or masks or cleaning supplies, is limited right now, just like everyone else. But for them, it might even be more limited because they're not used to delving into or establishing relationships for the supply chain around those pieces. So local communities are starting to look at how we can provide those access to those services. But the truth of the matter is that we will likely have some businesses when we look at the governor's order that are, it's according to the order, they can open up, but they really don't have the supplies or the abilities to access the materials necessary to stay safe when they do. So that's one of the challenges we just really want to call out and highlight. So I'm going to go ahead and pause there and open it up for questions and open up the chat and see if anything has come through. Yeah, please, what can I answer for you?
Adam, Bill here. Thanks for mentioning that the county will likely wait until they see what the state does. And we heard yesterday in the governor's address that we'll have something presumably at least a day or two before the designated date. But my question to you is it possible that the county could or might go with stricter regulations than Polis's guidelines based on what they feel in the county? Is that a possibility?
So I don't have anything to indicate that the county would actually do that. So, I don't have any information to say one way or another. However, Polis in his addresses has said that local areas can do that if they choose, because each local area might be dealing with different circumstances. So Bill, it's a possibility, but I don't have any information to suggest that our county would take advantage of that option.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, it's a sort of a politician's answer, but there you have it.
You're learning.
Yeah.
Adam, Lisa asked, where can business owners find info on how to comply with reopening their businesses?
Can you say that one more time, Becky? I think I missed the first part of it. Oh,
Yep.
and actually I can just read it.
Okay.
Yeah, so find info on how to open and comply. It kind of depends on the type of business that you are. So right now, the best information that we have so this is just on the regulatory side, so this would be attached to the orders. The best information that we have is what the governor has put out, but he himself has even said that there's some holes in it, right? There's some, gray area, and it's still a little bit vague and unclear in spots. And so that's the best information we have. However, there are lots of tutorials and lots of organizations that have put out information around, including OSHA. So OSHA is a great source of information, especially for businesses that aren't used to seeing or working with OSHA as closely as some of our more physical occupations like construction or whatnot. But so there's some OSHA guidelines that are really good about here's how you can clean, here's how you can social distance, here's how you can create a limited number of people for the square footage that you have. So they have some really great information on that. The other thing to watch for is that we do have some DORA regulated organizations and or industries. And so those industries are going to have to look at multiple different sources. So DORA is going to be one source. So let me give you an example. We can go back to our hairstylist. So if you're a cosmetologist in Colorado, you get your license through DORA. So DORA is going to have some regulations around how you need to do social distancing and how you need to do the cleanliness and the personal protective equipment. However, DORA may provide some regulatory, but when it comes to regulations locally, likely if it continues in the way that it has been with past stay-at-home orders, the county will be the first line of regulatory practice or calling out to those businesses. So we could find a business that's regulated by DORA, but it could be the county based on a complaint that contacts that business and essentially saying, here's what you need to do in order to comply. So it is important for some organizations to pay attention to who gives you your license, but based on the geography in which you operate, you still need to pay attention to those guidelines as well. So it's going to be interesting. And so thankfully the orders aren't more than 10, 15 pages long, so somebody can read those before bed and hopefully not fall asleep. But it is going to be important to stay up to date on your industry and who regulates it. So that's another long-winded answer to it. And it's also a way of saying we're also going to have to figure some of this out as we go, but we're working on getting some best practices out as a local community. Although them being super industry specific is going to be tough. So a lot of folks are going to have to take best practices and alter them based on their current work environments and their current activities. So.
And Adam, if I could add to that, I think you're going to see some of the commentary from the business associations is, you know, we'd like to figure out how to have that instruction be relatively simple. I mean, maybe it's, okay, you're running a retail store, boom, here's 4 things that we really want to have to cover the 80-20 rule. Just so we're dealing with the primary unsafe practices versus trying to boil the ocean, so to speak.
Right. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. So in some cases, signage is going to be really important. One of the things that we've talked about as a local group of business supporting organizations is how can we support businesses in not just staying safe themselves as owners, but also their staff, but how can they communicate to the public that they are a safe environment to enter? Because it's going to be almost just as important, because there's going to be a lot of very fearful people and very fearful consumers, but they still need haircuts, right? So how they're going to be choosing the facilities and the organizations that they feel are best suited to keep them safe and are most following the rules. So I think how can an organization communicate that they are in compliance with everything and doing everything that they can in order to keep their customers and themselves safe? So signage is really important. We're also asking, as information comes out, and we'll continue to talk with the county on this as regulations and pieces come out, is there something that can be printed out by an organization, and some organizations might just have to, or businesses might have to create something like this on their own if we don't get it from the county. But they can essentially say, here's what we're required to do. We are doing all of these things, and here's maybe some extra things that we're doing to keep you safe. Putting that on their webpage, making sure that that's very public. So right now it's a request that we have in that as these, as the regulations and or the guidance comes out, we can build pieces like that, but there's no reason why a business couldn't do that as soon as they see it too. Because I think we can't forget how important it is for businesses to continue to communicate with their public about how safe they are, not just the regulatory organizations that are requiring them to stay safe. So they're kind of caught in the middle of needing to please a lot of folks with all of these pieces.
Is there going to be a site, like where would be the best site to follow any updates that the county is making? Have we listed that already?
So I think the county webpage itself, there's a banner right across the top, so it's larimer.org, is going to be where that information is launched, and just clicking on the banner across the top is going to have the info. NOCO Recovers is also going to be putting that information up as soon as it becomes available. So again, NOCO Recovers being the one-stop shop. So as businesses need to have access to a lot of different things, they can go there. But if somebody's specifically interested in as soon as the information from the county drops, it's going to be on the county webpage.
Okay, thanks.
And I'm personally become quite a follower of the governor as well, watching those press releases in the Facebook, like I'm sure all of you have. So those are other things that we would encourage businesses to follow as the governor and his announcements.
Did anyone else have any questions? I don't see anything in the chat.
Real
Hi
quick.
guys, go ahead, Kat.
Sorry, I just wanted to address an earlier question in chat and make sure it got answered properly. Ron had asked, how do you contact the people on NOCO Recovers? And there is that red button up at the top that says Connect Now. It takes you to a very short form that just gets some basic information about your business. And then also the information that you're looking for. So whether it's compliance on physical distancing or tax information or maybe consulting or grant information, you can actually check those in the requests. And someone like Adam or Mike or one of their team are going to answer those requests that come into the website.
Thanks, Kat. This is Ron.
You're welcome.
I just want to let people know that I'm on the call from New York, but I'm kind of sitting in for my son. He's a sole proprietor, has a gym in Fort Collins, which closed down mid-March, but it hasn't been open that long. It's only like 15 months that he's been open. So when he takes his taxes for 2018, he's only got 1 month of business there. So there isn't much to look at for a loan basis. He's going to file for 2019, but hasn't done that yet. But being a new business, he doesn't have profitable income to show. So I think to get a loan, that may be something that's not going to happen for him. The other part of what he's doing to support himself, he also works as a trainer online. So he's a 1099 person that has lost some of his clientele because they're not working and they can't afford to have a personal trainer. So he's been hit on both ends. And I'm a little surprised that there isn't more Fort Collins business or Laramie County business on this call. I would think everybody that is a small business there would want to hear this information. Everything that you have on here is wonderful, and I'm glad I can share this with my son. He's actually at the gym now getting some maintenance done so that when he can reopen, hopefully mid-May, he'll have everything operational.
Do you know if your son has applied for unemployment insurance?
He was able to do that yesterday.
Okay, great.
Hey, Ron, one thing I might suggest, at some point when he does that application, it's going to ask him, the question is going to be, are you currently unemployed? And it's pretty important that he click yes to that, because I believe if you click no, then you're going to get in the denied category. So that's a FYI. And the other thing that I'll mention is, Adam, Kat, Terry, Becky, and I, we've done many of these calls at various municipalities, various organizations. So there is a lot of outreach going on to the business community through not only NOCO Recovers, but what we're doing in various towns and municipalities. So, if your son wants to touch base with us, happy to have a free one-on-one consulting session with him.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hi guys, it's Jana. I would just be curious from your perspectives, what are businesses not asking about or not preparing for that they probably should be?
How to deal with customers that don't wear masks. I think that's going to be a pretty big deal for a lot of businesses. I don't think we have any advice, and we were kind of seeking what that looks like and what the recourse is for a business. And it may just end up falling into the no shirt, no shoes, no service.
I've seen a number of businesses, at least in our little shopping area where my grocery store is, who've had up no mask, no entrance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's probably the best way to manage it. Yeah. But I think a lot of small businesses haven't quite thought that through yet, especially if they haven't been open.
Jana, that's a good question, and I'll follow up on Adam's comment, but I'll give you kind of a strange corollary. I remember being at a downtown business association meeting, and there was a business owner said, I don't want somebody walking into my store carrying a firearm. And the answer from the police department was, well, it's your store. You're free to set the regulations how you want for people walking into the store. And I kind of see wearing a mask or not wearing a mask is a pretty similar situation. Are you going to have this person come into your store that you feel is, quote, unsafe? And That's really something the store manager has some discretion on, I believe. You asked the question, what aren't people asking about, or what would you be concerned about? I'm still pretty concerned in my standpoint from the businesses that aren't actually on calls like this. You know, if you're a chamber member, if you belong to a business association, you're getting content, but I think that's still a relatively small proportion of the total businesses that are out there. And you're going to see NOCO recovers doing things like radio ads that are going to be coming out just to encourage people to ask for help. Because I am concerned about the people who are saying stuff and saying I need this, but what I'm more concerned about is the people that are just completely under the radar that we're not hearing anything from. So that's a concern of mine.
Yeah, I share that same concern. And, you know, Jana, the other thing, I think a lot of businesses, as they reopen, are going to have to think very critically about how to reconfigure the public spaces. So their storefront or their restaurant dining areas, just to give a couple of examples. And, you know, what do you do with the tables you can't use? Because you're going to have to create a lot of social distancing. I think another one is how to change the flow of your store so that you can have, because there will likely be regulations around how many customers you can have in a certain square footage at a certain time. So I don't know that businesses are probably going to go towards having bouncers, but they might go towards how do we move some shelving around and or create some flow so that people aren't on top of each other or bumping into each other or getting as close as they would under normal circumstances. But I think some folks are just going to have to rethink the flow of their public spaces.
Yeah.
Adam? Oh, I'm sorry.
I agree with everything that Mike and Adam have said so far. I think one of the things that I see that businesses aren't thinking about yet, and they're not thinking strategically enough about, is that marketing and communications piece. I think that they feel like once everything lifts and once these stay-at-home orders are done for, they can just go back to business as usual. And that's not going to be the case. They're going to need to have a strategic plan. And I think a lot of business owners out there right now, they're kind of shotgunning it. They're just putting stuff out there and hoping something sticks. And they're not really being strategic about what their marketing and communications plan going forward is. Because, you know, all of the research, all of the data suggests that we're going to see multiple waves of, you know, infection, you know, coming in and out over the next year to 2 years. So they're going to need to have a plan that's strategic that they can implement very quickly to change their communication strategy, whether that's, okay, we've got another stay at home, we need to go back to curbside, how do we communicate with our customers? Or it's, okay, we're opening up again, how do we let our customers know that we've got these things in place to make them feel safe? And if they're strategic about that, they'll do a lot better than if they just use the shotgun approach like they have right now.
This is Jan. From Birth and Habitat for Humanity. Hi. Hey, so we're planning to reopen our store in Berthoud, and some of the things we're looking to is other grocery stores like King Soopers, what they've put up on websites, how they're structuring their aisles. We're actually looking at hiring a small business company in Berthoud to do signage for us for like arrows on the floor. We're looking at having a counter at the front door to ensure that we're complying with people per square footage, all of those things. My question is, if someone doesn't have a mask, should we be prepared to have masks that we're providing customers? Are those kinds of things that, you know, we're looking at all the protocols we need to have in place. You know, what are your thoughts on that?
Adam, would you take the lead on that if you would?
Yeah, and I don't know if Mike's shifting it over to me because I don't have an answer either, but I don't know, Jan. That's a great question. I think that there will be a lot of folks that if they don't wear a mask into the store, they're probably not going to want to wear one that somebody hands to them. And, you know, it kind of depends on the ability to get masks, and because if you're handing them to customers as they come through, you may go through them pretty quickly.
And Jan, let me add to Adam's comment if I could. we're going to be on a call later today. Why don't I bring up your question and just see if there's any suggestions about that or recommendations, because I know manufacturers are dealing with how to get personal protective equipment. Now that's for their own employees, but you know, what if somebody's got to walk into their shop? How do they get that and make it available? So let me see what we could find out, and we'll get back to you on that if we could.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yep.
You know, the other thing, to go back to Jana's question, that I think a lot of businesses haven't quite thought through. So we started receiving phone calls from people who are currently receiving unemployment insurance whose employer had called them to say, hey, we're going to get back to work on Monday because the governor's lifting the order. And we don't know exactly how the governor's going to lift the order and how the county is also going to step in on that. So some of these businesses are just preparing, and they're probably very anxious to get back at it. There was a woman who is in a 4-person office, and they specialize in massage therapy and other related services. And she's the front desk person. And she was very concerned, partially because it's a very small office. And from her point of view, it doesn't feel safe as an employee, having customers coming and going, even if it was just one at a time by appointment. The other piece is that some of the other employees are still challenged with childcare issues. So schools aren't open, childcare centers aren't open, but yet they're being called back to work. So I think there's a lot of businesses, especially small ones that only have 1 or 2 staff members, that are going to be challenged with the workforce issues based on fear that their employees have, and is my workspace going to be safe for me? And childcare and other demands at home that just have not lessened. And do those allow a person to go back to work? So I think that's going to be a fairly sizable challenge for some of our smaller businesses.
Kat, do you see Jana's last question? Who should co-working spaces work with to make sure they're in compliance to open? Do we know an answer to that?
I'd probably kick that over to Adam as well. I think it's somewhere through the county, probably the health department, and just really paying attention to what all those guidelines are. You know, practicing the social distancing, making sure that the co-working people that are in your space aren't too close to each other, that common areas are cleaned regularly, those kinds of things.
And let me comment on that if I could, because Jana, I don't know if you were on the call earlier, and Adam might not have been either, but we talked about, we've got guidance from the governor. He has put out some general guidelines, but Larimer County is still looking at it to determine, are they going to follow the state guidelines, or are they going to put out something that's more stringent, less stringent, and it probably can't be less stringent. So we don't exactly know that yet, but some guidance from the county is probably going to be coming out within the next couple days, and it's probably going to be some industry specific guidance. So I would say co-working spaces into an office type environment is my assumption, and there's probably going to be some guidelines about what that looks like. It's going to be pretty similar to what do we do here in our SBDC office when Terry and Becky and I are normally all here. So it might need to be maybe as an example, of 50% of normal capacity sort of thing. But we don't know. We're waiting on guidance on that, which will, I believe, come from the county. And Adam, I'll throw it over to you if you've got additional thoughts on that.
No additional thoughts. I think you're spot on, Mike.
Okay. It came up yesterday in the 1 Million Cups meetup group as we were talking through it. And there was some confusion and questions about liability and cleaning supplies and some of those things. So if we can send those to the county, we will then in that regard. But I think there are a couple of them who are at this point going to keep their buildings closed simply because they can't get a hold of the cleaning supplies they would need to be open.
Yeah, well, and keep in mind too that even with the safer at home versus the stay at home, there's still that limitation on no gatherings of 10 people or more. So co-working spaces would definitely fall into that. So I think following the office guidance, like Mike said, would probably be your best bet. But you know, a lot of times those co-working spaces will also have networking groups and lunch and learns and things like that. And so obviously those would need to stay off of the schedule until further notice.
Adam, do you have any thoughts on a good resource for cleaning businesses to find what the compliance guidelines are? Anybody?
So businesses that are cleaning buildings?
Correct.
Yeah. You know, I'd say probably the best that we have right now are the OSHA guidelines.
Okay.
Around how to clean those businesses. Yeah.
Okay. Cindy, does that answer your question? Yes. Okay, we're good.
Okay.
Any other questions?
What support do you guys need back from the community?
We could always use help passing the word out. If you know of a business owner that hasn't contacted us or is struggling, let us know. We've also got 3 people that are doing stress relief assistance. They're consultants that they have a background in this. They don't have a background in mental health, so we're not calling them mental health professionals, but you can work with people who are under an inordinate amount of stress, which a lot of folks are right now. So that's something that's available through the SBDC, LBC, but just help get the word out. That's the primary thing that I would like to see happen.
Yep, that's exactly what I'd say. Entrepreneurs tend to kind of congregate together as friends personally and everything. So make sure that you're letting people know that we're here, we're a resource. You know, use NOCO Recovers to connect with us, use LarimerSBDC.org or lovelandbusiness.com just to get people to us, because I mean, we really do try to be that top-notch resource for all the businesses in our area.
Any other questions, folks? All right.
I think we're good. So I just want to thank Adam, Kat, and Mike for joining us today. They're always a great resource. And again, their numbers are listed in the chat group, which I'll be sending to you. So if you guys need to contact anyone, let us know. We really appreciate it. If you have any questions, just give us a call. And I hope you all have a wonderful day.
I do want to say one thing, if I could. I just wanted to say on this call we have Lisa Leveley with First National Bank. She has been doing a lot of extra work to go through not only meeting with clients, but also to get trained up and to stay current on things like the PPP loans, the EIDL loans, which is really over and above her normal day job. So Lisa, we thank you for the work that you're doing, is helping us out with your lending and financial background. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Okay, thanks all.
Good.
Thanks,
Thank you all.
everybody. Have a great day.
Appreciate it.